The world doesn't care about your excuses. Nobody's coming to save you. The moment you start believing in yourself truly is the moment life bends to your will. Confidence isn't given, it's taken. And when you take it, everything changes. You know what the first problem is with most people. They don't even believe in themselves. They look in the mirror and see weakness. They see failure. They see someone who isn't good enough. And because they've accepted that lie, they move through life like a victim, waiting for something magical to happen, waiting for someone else to change their life. Let me tell you something. Nobody is coming. Nobody cares. Nobody is going to wake up and say, "Oh, let me make sure you become successful today." It's you versus you every single day. And the moment you stop doubting yourself, the moment you decide to put belief into your own actions, everything starts to change. I wasn't born into privilege. I didn't wake up one day with money in my account or power in my hands. I was broke. I was struggling. I was in a tiny apartment with no real plan, eating cheap food, trying to figure out how to survive. I used to sit there thinking, why is life so hard? Why is everything against me? But then I realized the truth. Life isn't against me. Life is testing me. Life is saying, do you believe in yourself enough to push through this storm? And for a long time, I didn't. For a long time, I didn't. For a long time, I let fear, self-doubt, and laziness dictate my future. I kept telling myself, maybe I'm not built for success. That was my biggest mistake. The shift happened when I decided to stop lying to myself. I said, if no one's going to believe in me, then I'll believe in me. And that single decision changed my life forever. Once you start believing in yourself, the energy you put out into the world changes. People can feel it. They can sense it. Opportunities that were invisible before suddenly appear. Why? Because you carry yourself differently. You walk into a room with certainty, instead fear. You talk with conviction instead of hesitation. You execute without waiting for permission. I remember when I first started fighting. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the most experienced. But I made a decision that no matter what, I would not quit. I would not quit. I was going to be a champion. And let me tell you, there were days I got destroyed in training. Days I came home bruised, beaten, exhausted. Days I doubted if I could actually do it. But I kept showing up. I kept believing in myself when nobody else did. That belief became my weapon. And eventually, I became a world champion. A world champion. Not because I was special, but because I believed when others didn't. And the same principle applies to everything in life. Business, fitness, relationships, it all starts with belief. If you don't believe you can do it, you won't even take the first step. And if you do take the first step without belief, you'll quit at the first sign of difficulty. People look at me now and see the cars, the money, the freedom, the respect, but they don't see the nights I was broke. They don't see the sacrifices I made, the friends I lost, the endless hours of grinding when no one was watching. All of it was built on one thing, belief in myself. Belief doesn't mean you think it'll be easy. Belief doesn't mean you won't fail. I failed 1,000 times. I lost fights. I lost businesses. I lost people I thought were loyal. I had days where I wanted to stay in bed and just give up on everything. But belief means you keep going despite all of that. It means you bet on yourself over and over again, even when the odds are stacked against you. Most of you don't realize how powerful you really are because you've been brainwashed into thinking you're weak. School teaches you to follow orders. Society tells you to be average, and people around you reinforce your doubts because they don't believe in themselves either. But the truth is, you can achieve anything if you're willing to believe it before anyone else does. I had to teach myself that lesson the hard way. I had to go through years of being broke, of being ignored, of being laughed at. I had to look at myself in the mirror and face the reality that no one was coming to save me. And once I took full responsibility and built unshakable belief, the world had no choice but to bend. I built myself into the man I am today, not because I was chosen, but because I chose myself. So if you're sitting there doubting yourself, understand this. Your doubt is the only thing holding you back. You're not trapped by your circumstances. You're trapped by your mindset. Change the way you think about yourself and you'll change your life. Start believing that you are capable of more, that you deserve more, that you can achieve more, and then go prove it through your actions. The world doesn't reward self-pity. It rewards belief, discipline, and relentless execution. The moment you truly start believing in yourself, everything shifts. Doors open. People respect you. Money flows. Success becomes inevitable. But it all starts with you. And I'll tell you right now, if I can do it, anyone can. Because I came from nothing. I wasn't supposed to win. I wasn't supposed to win. I wasn't supposed to be here, but I am. And the only reason is because I believed in myself when no one else did. That's the first step. That's the foundation. Believe in yourself or stay exactly where you are. The second thing you need to understand is that belief without action is nothing but a fantasy. What a fantasy. Everyone says they believe. Everyone says they want to change their life. But when it's time to put in the work, they disappear. That's why so many people stay broke, stay weak, stay average. They talk more than they execute. They convince themselves that tomorrow will be the day they finally get serious. Tomorrow they'll start the business. Tomorrow they'll fix their body. Tomorrow they'll stop wasting time. But tomorrow never comes. The world doesn't reward intentions. It rewards results. I've seen people waste years just talking about what they're going to do. They've got ideas. They've got dreams. They've got endless plans, but they're too lazy, too comfortable, too distracted to actually commit. They'd rather sit on their phone scrolling for hours than put in 1 hour of work that could actually change their lives. That's the harsh truth. Most of you don't have a lack of opportunity. You have a lack of discipline. I know because I lived it. When I was younger, I had a million excuses. I used to blame my situation, my family, the world, everything but myself. I would say, I don't have enough money to start, or I'll wait until I feel ready. But one day, I realized that if I kept waiting for perfect conditions, I'd be waiting forever. There's no perfect time. The perfect time is right now, when it's hard, when it feels impossible, when you don't have all the answers. That's when action matters most. When I first started fighting, I didn't have money for the best gym, the best trainers, the best equipment. I had nothing. I was training in small gyms. I was sparring with whoever was available. I was broke, but I showed up every day. While other people were making excuses, I was in the ring taking punches, learning, growing, getting better. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't glamorous, but it built me into a champion. If I had waited for perfect conditions, I'd still be sitting in that small apartment, broke and dreaming. And the same thing happened when I started hustling outside the ring. I didn't know everything about business. I wasn't surrounded by mentors or investors or people cheering me on. I was figuring it out step by step, making mistakes, failing, losing money, but I kept moving. I kept taking action. And eventually, those small, consistent actions stacked up into success. People look at the outcome now and think it was smooth or easy. No. It was chaos, it was painful, it was uncertain, but I moved anyway. That's why I won. The truth is, the world doesn't care how you feel. You can be tired, stressed, broke, sad. It doesn't matter. Life is still moving. The competition is still working. Opportunities are still slipping away. Opportunities are still slipping away. And if you don't act, someone else will. That's the brutal reality. If you don't take action, someone hungrier, someone with less excuses will take the spot you wanted, the money you dreamed of, the life you thought was yours. I had times when I didn't feel like getting out of bed. Times when I felt hopeless, drained, beaten down. Times when I questioned everything. But I forced myself to move. I forced myself to work, even when I didn't want to. That's discipline. And discipline is the highest form of self-belief. Highest form of self-belief. Belief means nothing if you're not willing to prove it through action. You'll never think your way into success. You can't manifest greatness just by sitting there imagining it. You have to get up. You have to fight. You have to execute. Here's the crazy part. Once you start taking action, your belief actually grows stronger because every time you show up, every time you push through, every time you get a little better, you reinforce the idea that you're capable. Confidence doesn't just appear. It's built through consistent action in the face of doubt. That's why people who wait for motivation will always lose. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are weak. One day, you're motivated. The next day, you're not. If your life depends on how you feel, you're finished. But discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline is getting it done no matter what. And that's what builds champions. That's what builds wealth. That's what builds wealth. That's what builds unshakable men. I know what it's like to sit in the dark broke with no plan, wondering if it's even worth trying. I know what it's like to lose fights, lose money, lose friends, and feel like everything is crumbling. I've been there, but I also know what happens when you refuse to stay down. When you act in spite of everything, when you keep pushing, when you force yourself to keep going, that's when life starts to change. So stop waiting. Stop making excuses. Stop telling yourself you'll start tomorrow. Start now. Start now. Take action. Because one day you'll look back and realize that all the time you wasted hesitating, all the years you lost waiting for the perfect moment could have already built you the life you want. I refuse to wait. I refuse to let excuses dictate my future. I acted over and over again until the results came. And that's why I'm standing here today. Take action now or regret forever. The third thing you need to understand is that pain is not your enemy. Pain is the greatest teacher you'll ever have. Every single thing you want in life sits on the other side of pain. The reason most people never achieve anything is because the second life gets uncomfortable, they quit. They run from pain, they run from struggle, they run from pressure, and then they wonder why they never win. But the truth is simple. Greatness requires suffering. When I look back at my life, the hardest moments were the ones that built me. When I was broke, when I had nothing, when I was fighting just to pay rent, that pain shaped me. It forced me to sharpen my mind, to harden my body, to become relentless. When I was training for fights, pushing my body to exhaustion, bleeding, sweating, breaking myself down, that pain was building me into a world champion. Without it, I'd still be weak, broke, and invisible. The problem with most people today is they avoid pain at all costs. They want comfort, they want ease, they want everything handed to them. They complain when life gets tough. They complain when they feel pressure. They complain when they're challenged. And then they wonder why they're stuck at the bottom. You grow in chaos and struggle and suffering. The gym hurts, business hurts, discipline hurts, but that pain is the price you pay to level up. I remember countless nights where I sat alone, broke, wondering if I was wasting my life. I remember walking miles in the cold because I didn't have money for transport. I remember eating cheap food, rationing every dollar, just trying to survive. It was humiliating. But that pain was fuel. It burned inside me. It made me angry enough to refuse to accept weakness. Every moment of suffering became a reason to push harder, to fight harder, to build myself into someone unstoppable. When I was fighting, the pain was physical. I've been punched in the face, kicked in the ribs, dropped to the floor, gasping for breath. And in those moments, you learn who you really are. You learn if you're the type of man who stays down or the type who gets back up no matter what. I chose to get up every single time, and that's why I became a champion. Pain was never the enemy. It was the test. And if you can endure it, if you can survive it, you earn respect, you earn strength, you earn victory. The same applies to business. People think success is glamorous, but let me tell you, you'll stress betrayal. I've had businesses collapse. I've had people steal from me. I've had doors slammed in my face, and it hurt. But every failure taught me a lesson. Every betrayal made me sharper. Every loss forced me to evolve. That pain built the empire I have today. Without it, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. So when life hurts, understand that it's a gift. Pain is feedback. Pain is telling you that you're growing, that you're in the right place, that you're pushing beyond what's comfortable. The difference between winners and losers is simple. Losers run from pain. Winners embrace it. Winners look pain in the face and say, come on, give me more because I know what's on the other side. And the truth is, pain never leaves you. Life will always test you. The bigger you dream, the bigger the pain. But here's the secret. When you learn to love the pain, nothing can stop you. Once you stop fearing discomfort, once you stop avoiding struggle, once you stop running from the fight, you become dangerous. Because then you'll do what others won't. You'll go where others quit. You'll keep pushing when everyone else folds. And that's what separates the strong from the weak. I know what it's like to hurt. I know what it's like to fail, to lose, to suffer. I've been through it all, but I also know that without that pain, I would have nothing. Without that pain, I'd be like everyone else. Average, invisible, forgettable. Pain forced me to evolve. Pain forced me to grow. Pain forced me to become the man I am today. So if you're in pain right now, good. That's where you're supposed to be. That's the process. That's life molding you, preparing you, testing you. Don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Don't numb it with distractions. So embrace it, endure it, and let it transform you. Pain is the path to power. Without it, you'll never know your true strength. Without it, you'll never rise. Without it, you'll stay weak forever. The choice is yours. Suffer now or suffer forever. Forever. Another truth you have to face is this. The people around you can either be the fuel to your fire or the chains that keep you down. Your environment is shaping you, whether you realize it or not. If you're surrounded by weak, lazy, unmotivated people, guess what? You'll become one of them. You can talk all day about believing in yourself, about taking action, about embracing pain, but if you're constantly breathing in the poison of negativity, excuses, and mediocrity, you're never going to rise above it. When I was younger and broke, I was surrounded by people who lived in excuses. They'd sit around talking about why life was unfair, why they couldn't succeed, why the system was against them. And for a while, I joined in. I let their mindset infect me. I thought like them, I complained like them, I acted like them. But then one day I woke up and realized I'm wasting my life listening to losers justify why they're losers. Nothing about being around them was pushing me forward. It was dragging me backward. And here's the brutal reality. If the people closest to you don't demand more from you, you'll never demand more from yourself. You'll get comfortable being average because that's all anyone around you expects. That's why I cut people off. That's why I distanced myself from friends who had no ambition, who had no hunger, who were satisfied with being broke and powerless. It wasn't because I hated them. It was because I loved myself enough to know I deserved more. I remember the shift clearly. I was broke, living in a small apartment, grinding, training, hustling, and the people around me were mocking it. They didn't understand why I was obsessed with discipline, why I was sacrificing, why I was pushing so hard. They'd tell me, relax, take it easy. You don't need to work that much. And that's when I realized they weren't giving me advice for my success. They were giving me advice to keep me on their level. The second I recognized that, I cut the cord. I didn't care if it meant being alone. I'd rather walk the path alone than stay chained to mediocrity with a crowd. And that's something you have to accept too. Sometimes you'll be alone. Sometimes you'll cut people off and the silence will feel heavy. But that silence is better than the noise of weak voices telling you to quit, telling you to slow down, telling you to accept less than you're capable of. You're capable of. Alone, you at least have a chance. Surrounded by the wrong people, you're doomed. But here's the other side of it. When you start building yourself, when you start demanding more, when you start leveling up, you attract the right people. Suddenly, you're surrounded by winners, by grinders, by men and women who push you higher, who expect more, who hold you accountable. That's the environment you want, because in that environment, growth becomes natural. Competition becomes natural. Competition becomes natural. Progress becomes inevitable. I didn't become a champion alone. Yes, I trained alone many times. Yes, I worked harder than everyone else. But eventually, I placed myself in environments where only killers existed. I sparred with people who wanted to destroy me. I worked with coaches who didn't care about my excuses. I surrounded myself with people who raised the standard. And even though it was painful, even though I got broken down in the process, it forced me to rise higher. Rise higher. And the same thing happened in business. Once I cut out the weak voices and put myself around sharp, hungry people, everything changed. I was forced to adapt, forced to think bigger, forced to execute harder. Being around high-level people exposes your weaknesses. It shows you exactly where you're falling short. But instead of running from it, you use it. You let it sharpen you. Most of you don't even realize how much your circle is holding you back. You think they're your friends, but they're anchors. They're keeping you tied down because they don't want to see you rise. Because if you rise, you remind them of everything they're not. And instead of using you as inspiration, they'll try to drag you back down. That's the reality of weak people. I've lost friends because I refused to stay average. I've been called arrogant, selfish, obsessed. People told me I'd changed, and they were right. I had changed. I chose to become more while they chose to stay the same. And if that makes people uncomfortable, so be it. The truth is, you don't owe anyone your mediocrity just to make them feel better about their own. So ask yourself right now, who are you listening to? Who are you spending time with? Who are you letting influence your thoughts, your habits, your future? Habits, your future. Because if you're surrounded by weakness, don't be surprised when you stay weak. If you want to be powerful, you need to build an environment that forces you to be powerful. Your environment is either killing you or creating you. Choose wisely. The next thing you need to understand is discipline is everything. Motivation is a lie. Motivation is a temporary spark. It comes and goes depending on how you feel. Discipline is the fire that burns every single day, whether you feel like it or not. That's why most people fail. They're waiting to feel ready, waiting to get motivated, waiting for that perfect rush of energy to carry them. But the truth is, if you rely on motivation, you'll quit the second things get uncomfortable. Discipline is what carries you when everything inside you wants to stop. When I was younger, I didn't always have discipline. I would wake up late, skip training sessions, waste hours on nonsense. I thought talent was enough. I thought being strong or fast was all it took. But the truth slapped me in the face when I started fighting seriously. I'd get into the ring with guys who weren't as naturally gifted as me, but they were disciplined. They trained harder. They ate cleaner. They slept properly. They repeated the same drills thousands of times until they became machines. And while I had some good days, I was inconsistent. That inconsistency cost me. I lost fights I should have won. And that loss hurt me more than any punch I'd ever taken. That's when I understood discipline beats talent every single time. Talent without discipline is wasted potential. Discipline without talent can still make a champion. I started forcing myself to show up no matter how I felt. If I was tired, I trained. If I was sick, I trained. If I was depressed, broke, angry, I trained. I stopped giving myself options. Discipline meant there was no negotiation. My feelings didn't matter. My excuses didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was execution. And once I locked into that mentality, everything changed. I became a machine. I became reliable, consistent, unshakable. And people around me noticed it too. Suddenly, I wasn't just another fighter. I was someone people feared because they knew I wouldn't quit. That's the power of discipline. It makes you predictable in the best possible way. The world knows you won't fold. The same thing applied to business. You think I felt motivated to grind every single day, to work on building systems, making calls, dealing with problems, losing money, starting over? No. There were days I hated it. Days I was exhausted, stressed, uncertain. But discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline says, I'll do it anyway. And because I did it anyway, because I forced myself to keep moving when every part of me wanted to quit, I built something real. That's the difference between success and failure. Discipline in the dark, discipline when nobody's watching. Most of you sabotage yourselves because you only work when it's convenient. You go to the gym when you're motivated. You work on your dreams when you're excited. You grind when you feel good. That's why you never make it. Winners understand that discipline is doing what's required even when every part of you wants to stop. Discipline is getting up at 6 a.m. when your body screams to stay in bed. Discipline is sticking to the plan when everyone else is partying. Okay. Discipline is eating clean when everyone else is stuffing their face. Discipline is sacrifice, and sacrifice is the price of greatness. I had nights where I was broke and hungry, staring at the ceiling, wondering if all this sacrifice was worth it. Oh, I had days where my body was so sore from training that I could barely move. I had mornings where the alarm went off and my first instinct was to quit, to just sleep in, to take the easy way out. But discipline didn't allow me to negotiate. Discipline reminded me that nobody cares how I feel, just how we feel. Discipline reminded me that the world doesn't reward laziness. It rewards consistency. And if you can't take the hits, you'll never make it to the other side. I've been hit hard. I've been broke, betrayed, defeated. I've had days where everything collapsed. I've had moments where I didn't know how I'd get out. But every single time, I treated it like war. I didn't fold. I didn't cry for help. I didn't wait for rescue. I fought. I adapted. I came back harder. That's why I'm here today, because no matter how many times life tried to break me, I refuse to stay broken. And that's the mindset you need. You have to look at every obstacle, every challenge, every betrayal, every failure, and treat it like combat. You don't run. You don't hide. You don't give in. You fight. You prepare yourself mentally and physically to go through whatever it takes. And once you build that mentality, life stops being overwhelming because you stop expecting it to be easy. You start expecting it to be war, and you show up ready for battle every single day. For why discipline, belief, action, pain, and environment all matter because they are your weapons. Belief is your shield. Discipline is your sword. Pain is your training ground. Action is your strike. Environment is your army. And if you master those, you'll walk into life's battlefield armed and dangerous. Most people walk in naked, unprepared, crying when they get hit. No wonder they lose. And let me tell you this, the battlefield never ends. The second you think you've made it, the second you think you can relax, life hits you with something new. A new challenge, a new problem, a new enemy. That's why you can't afford to ever go soft. The moment you soften, you're done. You're done. I know what it's like to fight when everything feels impossible. I know what it's like to be tired, beaten down, surrounded by problems with no clear way out. But I also know that when you embrace the fight, when you accept that life is war and you stand your ground, you become unstoppable. Unstoppable. You stop being scared of problems because you know you're built to handle them. You stop being scared of pain because you've lived through worse. You stop being scared of losing because you know you'll always find a way to win. So stop expecting life to be easy. Stop looking for shortcuts. Stop waiting for someone to save you. This is war. Get your mind right. Get your body right. Get your soul ready for the fight. Because if you don't, you'll lose. Life is war, and only the strong survive. You either rise and dominate, or you stay weak and get crushed. Life doesn't care, but you should.